much for providing that overview of Opnr, what it's like to create a tech platform and an app to connect local artists with concert organizers and some of that behind the scenes stuff, the unsexy part. Let's talk about being a CEO, right? Let's talk about being a female CEO in a generally male dominated industry. Because to me, tech still seems very male dominated. Correct me if I'm wrong, but okay. And then even beyond the stuff you're doing in the tech space, like Motu wine and spirits is generally male dominated from what I've seen. But once again, that's what I'm saying. Even being a DJ, I know very few female DJs. You might be the only one. I'm thinking about all the ones I know in my head or that I have personal relationships with. Yeah. Like a majority of the things you do are in a male dominated space.
It's not easy, but I think I'm just used to it. The only time now where I feel like I even really think about it, it's like if I'm just in a setting where it's so obvious that it's almost, you're just like, yeah, I can't even ignore the fact that I'm like the only woman here because I'm literally the only woman in a sea of like dudes. And I get it. I don't want to minimize it and seem like it's not something to be bothered by because everybody's journey on that is probably different. And I do think probably because I've just worked in situations and in industries where it's been so like male dominated that I kind of don't notice it as much anymore. I tend to notice it when there's another woman around. I don't know, then I think I'm more sensitive to it because I'm like, okay, if somebody else is around that isn't as used to, maybe being in settings like this. And so it might be harder for them. And so I try to I try to make sure that I'm accommodating to stuff like that. Because I get it. It can be weird.
So what about you makes you bold enough, brave enough, confident enough, just comfortable being in these spaces, in these rooms? You're special. The world can see it. You're special. You do a lot of things that the normal person wouldn't do. What is it that allows you, it kind of empowers you to do this work?
As long as I know what I'm doing, I'm good. It's also I work really, really hard. And when I decide that I'm going to be good at something, I do not play games about it. When I was I'm a DJ, I was I'm about to be the best DJ that there ever was. I was I'm going to make sure that I don't need to look at anything to match beats. I don't need to I wanted to be the best whatever it was that I could be. And so I think I just, whatever it was, I just worked really hard. And so when I would be in those spaces, I didn't feel like they knew something I didn't know. To be honest, most of the time I was probably the smartest person in the room, but it was because I knew once I got there that people might not take me that seriously. So I'm always over prepared every single time. Whatever it is I'm supposed to be prepared for, I'm prepared for more than that. Whatever question you haven't thought of, I thought about it last night and I got an answer for it and I wrote it down. It's on a sticky note. It's right here. If I'm prepared, I'm confident. If I'm him hawing on stuff or just kind of not sure, it's either A, because I'm unprepared, or it's on something that I haven't quite nailed yet. I haven't figured it out yet or figured out how to explain it, well yet.
Besides doing the best job you can do, what motivates you?
I'm definitely an achiever. It's a game to me. I like it. It's I was the same way in school. I didn't need, my parents didn't really tell me to study and stuff. I was studying because I just liked getting A's. I loved being smart. So I just I focused on it and I did it. I think I like winning. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm not a sore loser. And I think that helps. I love coming out on top and I certainly enjoy it, but I'm never mad if I didn't get what I wanted to get or whatever. I'll just figure out another way to get it.
You are a very busy woman. You do a lot in your 24 hours. Give me one tip for time management.
I don't even know if I can give a tip for time management. Since COVID hit, I feel much like everyone else, I've been struggling too, trying to get some kind of balance of meeting schedules, which exploded because suddenly nothing was in person anymore. You can just catch anybody, the quick phone call. Everything is a 15 or 30 minute Zoom or Teams meeting. It that alone just kind of makes your schedule explode. I have learned the art of delegating, asking for help, when you need it, relying on services. I was reading this article probably about a couple years ago. It was about this woman who she was a blogger, super successful one. Like she was making like $2 million a year. And she like wrote this whole play-by-play article. I gotta find it because I'll send it to you. You probably want to read it, but she was like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a wife, and I have 2 kids. She's like, I work from home. She's like, and I make like $2 million a year. She's like, here's how I survive. And like, it was dope because she broke down the whole thing. I have an assistant for this and an assistant for this. Here's how much I pay them. Here's what they do. It was really eye-opening, I think, to see that because it's different for us, but it's different for women doing this like than it is for men. I would like to say that it's the same thing. It's not our fault that it's not. It just is. The system is exerting certain kinds of pressure on us, and it just is harder for us when we do it. And so the reality is like, it doesn't matter if you're single or married or just in a relationship, we have more demands on our time, like typically a lot of times, like than guys do, because we're just doing stuff at the crib too. So because of that, like you need to supplement with stuff like Shipt, fantastic grocery service. like so I use Shipt like for grocery shopping. That saves me time. Instacart, like anything that cuts down on me having to get in the car and make a trip somewhere during the day, I use services for that stuff.
You're paying for convenience.
Yeah.
To get that time back because you don't have those 2 hours to go to the grocery store.
Yeah. Like if you were working a corporate job and you're like, I need an assistant because I don't have time to do these things. It's the same thing. Once you grow to a point where you realize that your time spent on this thing is more valuable doing this work like than it is doing something like grocery shopping. Not that there's anything wrong with it, super noble task, feeding your family and everything. But the reality is anybody can do that. To be able to get to a point where you can figure out like how to supplement with some services and stuff for family, you know, shoot, somebody can do it for free. That's the best way to do it. But sometimes you might have to pay for some stuff, whether it's grocery shopping, you know, daycare, whatever it is that women need to do, you know, we always figure out how to make it work.
What are the top 3 qualities needed to lead a company?
I mean, it'd probably be different from every person, probably maybe even different like by industry, but like for me, I think what's important is like, it's like learning how to be balanced between transparency and like transparency and honesty and sharing with your people and not. Like that's been like a really crazy thing that I think I've just even learned working like on the corporate side is like, as much as like, and I am a transparent person, especially when it comes to work related stuff, like I'm like, tell the whole team, here's what's happening. We need to figure out how we're going to rally and do this together. But the reality is like sometimes information in the wrong hands is not helpful. And I've had to learn that like over the last few years of just like that fine balance of like when to share, when to hold back, things like that. I think that one's a big one. I also think like just being people first, caring about people. Because the reality is like the people who, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, like people I've had to tap who are doing stuff for me for free, but it's also just being nice and kind and, you know, being a person that people want to work with and want to work for. Because there's going to be times like, especially like with startups, like during these times where you're building and stuff, you need like true believers. Only people who get true believers are inspiring people, you know, people who like can energize and like make people feel like they're part of a whole and like they want, like people who are hype about doing something even when they're not getting paid. That takes some real like something different that you really, and you have to love it. Like that's, you have to pull that deep some days. Because some days the journey is not it. Like you have to try really, 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 really hard to be like inspiring to people because you can't make people do stuff. Like you have to like make them want to do this stuff as much as you want this thing. And that's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, influencing and inspiring others. Do you have a business mentor?
You know what? I don't currently, but I'm actually looking for one. So I spent like, I don't know, like last couple months just kind of like light shopping, like looking for like an executive coach and stuff because I would recommend it personally. I've had one before, like in the past for different things. I had a mentor that was more focused on like, how do I balance startup stuff with my life? And I really wanted a woman for that because again, like stuff is just different. You know, like you're often balancing, telling people what to do at work all the time, and then like figuring out like, okay, we got family stuff and like all this, like you got to take care of this too. And it's that dichotomy of these two personalities can be crazy. I do think that like mentorship is a good thing. I hope that I find somebody in the next couple of months, because I'm looking for someone who can kind of help almost like with the balance piece of it, like the work-life balance piece of it. But there's like a couple things that I know like work-wise, I have like a little bit of like, it's like a hurdle for me. It's like I can feel that feels like I'm blocked and I hate it, but I know it's a problem. So I'm like, all right, I need to tackle this.
Now I want to talk about marketing. I know that you said you've hired some people to help with marketing in the past, or that's where you kind of sit some of the dollars with Fourtifeye or Opnr. But also, just given everything you do, you have to you had to market yourself as a DJ. I know there's marketing involved with Motu Vajay. I know that you are marketing with Opnr to, get this in front of concert venues and even, the artists who should be using your app to get in front of these crowds. So share some marketing tips.
First of all, I hate our generation for creating all these platforms that we now have to feed the beast. But, I mean, it's content. Content's king. It's definitely the name of the game. It will be a never-ending task. It doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, what kind of business it is. You just have to do it. So I think that that's a big piece of it. Like social is always going to be a huge component of that. Leveraging free tools where you can, because again, in this space, like you're probably not going to have a lot of cash. So it's like trying to make things work for you as much as seemingly possible. Email marketing is as a consumer, I hate it. As a business person, it works. So like, and a lot of times like it's pretty cost effective because that stuff you can gather a lot of times, like gather some of those email addresses for free, or if they're already part of your business process, like that stuff you already got. So that's like an easy one-to-one relationship. Now, I mean, obviously like influencers, there's stuff that you can do there. Like for us, like musicians end up just kind of de facto being influencers for us in a lot of instances, especially the ones like, who have gotten good shows like from us and who are now in a completely different situation than they were in like a year ago. So that helps us with proof points. Like we can, whether it's interviews or having them speak or whatever, podcasts like this, like great to get the word out. It's like anything, I'll just try to make whatever is free work for you, as good as possible. Like even if you just take one platform like Instagram, you got live, you can go live, you got reels now. There's so much like that can be done. It just sucks because you got to research and learn all of it. But
what is your greatest challenge with running a tech company?
My greatest challenge right now is COVID-19. From the alpha strain all the way to whatever it ends up being, it's certainly a thorn in my side currently. For any business that relies on people gathering together, which human beings are very social beings, so that's a lot of businesses. But any business that relies on that, I think we're going to be challenged, as we kind of figure out what's going to happen with COVID. But I do think that, over the next year, it's like live music isn't back. It's not that it's like gone, but definitely it took a huge hit. Like a lot of those like promotion companies and like production companies, touring companies and stuff like took a huge hit, and they're still taking a huge hit, but you're starting to see like where some people have been able to pivot and change a little bit and hopefully survive this whole thing.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to start a company similar to Opnr?
Ooh, I would just say like, one, try to build whatever you can yourself. It'll be cheaper for you. If you can't build it yourself, find some friends who can. Like being able to build a good product is definitely like the biggest part of the challenge, but it's also only a part of it. You can build something, that's great. You still got to get people to want it. Even after they want it, you have to have a way to get it to people. Even after they get it, you need more people to get it, and you usually need people to get it again. And again and again and again and again and again. It can be a never-ending challenge sometimes. Once you get past the first thing when you wanted X to happen, and when like a little piece of X happens, sometimes that's just enough. And I tell people all the time to just like make small goals like along the way, so you feel like something happened. Because like if you make them too far apart on a journey like this, because the journey is long, it's not like startup journey is like a month or 2 months or whatever. So because it's long, you're gonna need ways to inspire yourself, because you're trying to inspire other people, but no one's doing that for you. So you're gonna have to do that on your own, and the only way to do that is like all along the way. If you're like, yep, we're going to do this. And then when you do that, you're like, it's psychological, but it feels good. Then you can move on to the next thing. You're like, yeah, I did that. Like, move on. So yeah,
Celebrate your wins.
hey,
You said a lot, but
wins,
celebrate your wins. All right, so now we're going to shift and play another game that I call For the Culture. What is your favorite TV show, movie, or series with a predominantly black cast?
Oh, okay. So like growing up, Martin was definitely it. I love Blackish. It's like one of my favorite shows, like little family shows, like Cosby's Part 2. I loved Insecure.
When I see you, I automatically think Insecure Issa. Yeah. I feel like the music connection, just how she was so intentional about putting on for other artists and representing her hometown.
Goofiness.
The goofiness. I'm happy you said it.
She does something stupid. I'm like, dang, that's me.
And then also, I really love how Issa is always just natural and unapologetically herself. Like, she doesn't care what people think about her. You can, joke about her if you want to, but she's going to be her silly, goofy self. And her hair, like the hair in the fashion piece, I like that too, because I feel like you have a very unique fashion sense as well, which I like. And you make jokes on the internet about, look, I wore real pants today. And then just the hair, the lipstick, all that. So yeah.
The startup journey is either little things. You're like, hi, I put on jeans today.
Yes.
Look at me. I won.
Cool. So who is your favorite artist?
But like, I love Kanye. I really do. Like, and there's so much of him that I understand. Just being like black and growing up in the Midwest, and like the Midwest has a very specific like culture, kind of really different than the West Coast or down south or like than the East Coast. It's just different. And like, I felt like that the first time, like when I first heard College Dropout, it felt like, oh yeah, it's my cousin. Like, that's literally what it felt like. And so I think because of that, I'm always like, yeah, like even when he talks crazy, I'm like, I get where he's going with it. I'm like, I wish he would shut up. I get where he's going. I mean, I have an immense amount of respect for Beyonce. Like, her music isn't always like 100% my favorite music, but it doesn't have to be. Cause like, I just think she's great. I just love like watching Black women do stuff. Cause like when we do it like our life depended on it. That like you can't hate on it because it's just fantastic. Like, and I see so much of that in the stuff that she does, and like I appreciate and I'm glad that she's alive.
Yes, alive and still creating art. Still putting music out there, still serving looks with the outfit through Instagram and the hair. Ivy Park collection, let's talk about it.
Like, I'm happy. Like I said, like even if I hated it, which I don't, but like even if I did, like I don't care. Like, I'm just happy that it's happening.
Okay, so what song instantly puts you in a good mood?
Because everybody always asks me, when they ask me about Kanye, they're like, well, which one is your favorite album? And Graduation is actually my favorite album. And off of that album, I Wonder is like my favorite song. I love the sample from it because like the original song is by this guy whose name escapes me right now, but he's from the UK. And when you hear the original song and then when you hear like what Kanye did to it, it's like, I love stuff like that. I love samples. I love sample flipping. I love figuring out like where samples came from. Like, that's what my friends always ask me anytime they hear a new song. They're like, oh, I know it's a sample. They're like, what's that, Dre? And I'll be like, you guys just act like I know everything. I'm like, but yeah, it's so-and-so. It came out this year.
Like, and if you don't know, I bet you'll figure it out. You look like the researcher. Like, I'm getting answers to the question.
I love thinking about when somebody made a song, especially when they sample something, because I think of like, where did they even hear that song to sample it, and like why that piece of the song and not this other piece of the song. Like,
what is your greatest accomplishment, but more specifically as it relates to your businesses and your brands?
Like, my greatest accomplishment was the fact that I got my startup acquired during COVID, because like that's not supposed to happen. It definitely isn't supposed to happen to someone who looks like me. Like, to be able to come through that when frankly I had no idea what was going to happen. Like, there were times where I was just like, maybe I just cut my losses and do something else. Like, I didn't think that was going to go down the way that it did, but that taught me to not worry about the world around you. Like, sometimes you just have to just tunnel vision, stay focused. So that way when stuff does happen, you're actually ready for it. Because to be honest, like, had I paused last year and then if the opportunity came up, I might not have been ready for it, or it might not have looked like I was ready for it to that founder. You know, like it might have just looked different. So I'm glad that I stayed the course, I guess. Like,
You're still here, still standing like Monica.
hey, man, hey, like Antoine Fisher.
So now we're coming to the end of the interview. I want to, of course, thank Dre for her time and everything that she has shared. This has been inspirational for me. I learned a few things, and I know the viewers did. But I would like for Dre to leave us with an inspirational message.
One, thank you for having me. If you're on this entrepreneur, journey, regardless of what it is that you're doing, try to not worry about the now. Like, think about the deadline that's out there. Try to manage that, like, delayed gratification as much as humanly possible. Because, like, it really, sometimes it just requires just not worrying about everything that is swirling around you, especially right now. Like, COVID is so ever present, with everything, and it's impacting everything, that sometimes it can just be a huge distraction. Just try to focus as much as you can. Don't burn yourselves out. Drink water, stay moisturized, all that stuff. So
we are going to drop all of her contact information in the description box below so that you can connect with her and her socials, and then also support all of her brands.
Yeah, thank you so much, Whitney, for having me. I definitely appreciate the invite. It's good to see you. You look great.
Thank you. You too. So I just want you to know you are welcome back here anytime you want. Come back to the Currency Club, have another interview. Tell us how it's going with Opnr. Tell us about any new projects you're dibbling and dabbling in.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there'll be something. I can't.
Yes, me too. All right. So viewers, that's it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the club, and we will see you next time.